Back in 1959, Bob Beezer, one of the Peaceful Pacers, involved in running the Mohawk Dragstrip at the old Deseronto airport, asked Ken and I if we would be interested in building a D-class dragster. This class uses either a 6-cylinder or flathead V8 engine, and there were none running at that time at the dragstrip. We talked it over and decided to have a go at it. We built the dragster at the J.H. Babcock & Sons truck body plant in Odessa. I welded up the frame from 2 1/8 by 1/8 wall square steel tubing and 1.5-inch pipe for the upper frame and roll bar. We used the flathead V8 engine from Ken's 1950 Ford. The center door post was rusted, and Ken had been wiring the door shut to keep it from flying open in the corner. We got a 1948 Ford transmission and rear end from Nile Rogers wrecking yard. We used the 48 because it had an enclosed drive shaft. An enclosed drive shaft has a pipe bolted between the transmission and the rear end, and the drive shaft runs inside this pipe. We cut off and re-welded the pipe so it was about 6 inches long, just long enough to cover one universal joint, and used this to close couple the transmission to the rear end. The rear axle and front motor mounts were fastened to the frame to support the engine, transmission, and rear axle. The radiator was right behind the driver's seat. We needed an I-beam front axle and found an old Prefect car that we bought for $15. That was our biggest purchase, as the frame materials were donated by the truck body plant. All of the dragsters back then were slingshot style, where the driver sat behind the rear wheels. We pondered how to use the Prefect axle and couple it to steering in the slingshot style, and decided that it would not be worth the effort. We used the steering just as it came from the Prefect, which meant that we would be sitting ahead of the engine. We were a bit ahead of our time with this design, as now most top fuel dragsters are built this way. Here's a shot of Satan's from Niagara Falls, New York. Notice how they're sitting behind the rear wheels in the slingshot style of dragster from the 1960s. They were running in the 140 miles per hour. I'm not sure of the times. Here we go, Ken at the wheel on RD dragster taking a run. We were running around 101 with the times in the 16 seconds. Not that fast, but we had a lot of other work that we could still do on it, like changing the rear end out from a 378 to a 411, getting some smaller tires. A lot of street cars were running up at the drags as well. Here we are being pushed back by Doug Smith and his 56 Oldsmobile. Doug was our push car. We didn't have a starter, so we had to have a push to start and a push to get back. A couple of motorcycles running. Here's Hammond Brothers from, I believe it was Chippewa, New York, either that or Cayuga. They were a top fuel dragster in the 60s. They were running around 150, 151 mile an hour. I'm not sure of the times. He comes up to the line, but I think he has a few problems. See a mechanic coming out, and he sits there. He's starting to heat up, so for some reason he just takes a run around. Here we go. He's taking a run around back up to the line, and he'll blast right off quickly because his rad is hot. That was quite a machine. They did a run at 151, and I forget what the time was, but they measured the distance and checked the clocks out, because at that time they were concerned it was a record for them. Here we are again at the line. I believe I'm driving this time. There we go. We packed the rad with water. We didn't have a fan or anything on it, so the rad was right behind the seat, and we'd have to shut her down as soon as we went through the timing clock so it'd overheat and blow the rad. There's Hammond Brothers being pushed back again. I had a lot of shots of them because they were pretty much the car to beat in those days. Supercharged, Hemi engine, fuel. See at the front the fuel tank, and behind that is the supercharger, the pipes leading back into the engine. There's another shot of him. You can see the pipes discharging back into the engine from the supercharger. There's an old 39 or 40 Ford taking a run. Another shot of Hammonds. There he goes for one last run.